You're listening to the Animal Free Labcast, the podcast that puts humans, not animals, at the heart of medical research. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Animal Free Labcast. I'm here again with Dr. Gemma Davies. Welcome, Gemma.
Hi Carla, nice to see you.
Always nice to see you. So tell us what we've got happening in today's episode, Gemma.
So today we have a very special guest. It's Aaron Davidson, our Public Affairs Manager at Animal Free Research UK, and he'll be giving us an update on all the latest with our Herbie's Law campaign.
Fantastic. Well, before we ask Aaron to join us, let's have a chat about last week's poll results.
Yeah, so if you remember, the question was, should researchers be incentivised to replace animal-derived products like fetal calf serum in their work, yes or no?
I'm going to guess it was yes.
It was. We had 485 responses saying yes.
Amazing.
And just 5 that said no.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But we also had some really interesting comments. So thank you again to everybody that took the time to leave a comment. You know, we had lots from both sides, so it made a really interesting discussion. So, for example, Dean from Facebook says it seems at odds to give incentives, financial or otherwise. Modern scientific methods for non-animal testing sell themselves, but it's not the nature of reality, and I'll vote no in my heart.
Ah, that's an interesting perspective, Dean.
Yeah, I suppose, you know, sort of thinking that maybe people shouldn't need to be incentivised and the science should sell itself, but unfortunately that's kind of not where we are at the moment.
Yeah. And then Carol from Facebook, she said that people who support experiments on animals have always used the excuse that there isn't an alternative, and now there is.
Yeah.
So interesting you should say that, because we're going to talk a little bit more about that a little bit later in the episode.
Yeah, so what else has grabbed your attention this week, Carla?
Well, last time I mentioned that we were meeting with the Scientific Advisory Panel, so our kind of collection of experts, to talk about the many grant applications we received this time. Very exciting to see such appetite for animal-free research. So we had a great meeting with them. We reviewed all of the grant applications, and they helped us to decide which ones we should fund. So we've chosen a really nice selection of research to fund around the country, actually, and I think this is going to make a real impact in replacing animals in research. So some of the research is going to be pilot studies. So they will help scientists to try out a new idea, and they'll help them to get data that they can then use to apply for much bigger pots of money from places like the government and the big medical research charities, the ones, you know, that you see on the TV that have got bags and bags of money. Always good to help our researchers sort of get in with them. And then some of the other research is going to be helping scientists to transition away from using animal-derived biomaterials, like the ones we've been talking about, fetal calf serum and antibodies and so on, so that they can start using alternatives which are much more relevant to humans and obviously kinder to animals. So the next step is all the behind-the-scenes work of agreeing contracts and start dates and all that kind of stuff. So once that's all been done by our brilliant team, we'll be able to tell you more.
Yeah, very exciting.
Absolutely. The other thing is that we're in York this week, aren't we, Gemma?
We are.
Very exciting to be in York. Always lovely to go to Yorkshire.
Yeah. And
that's because we're hosting a conference for scientists which is all about sharing best practice in non-animal research. So we hold a conference for scientists every year, and it's such a nice opportunity just to bring everybody together from around the UK and further afield to discuss all the brilliant animal-free research work that they're doing. It's a good opportunity because just to bring them all together into like a lovely community, they can share tips and tricks with each other, talk about their research, get new ideas, form new collaborations as well. This year we're hosting the conference jointly with our friends at Humane Research Trust and Replacing Animal Research. So it's going to be a really nice opportunity just to bring all of the scientists all of our charities are working with together and really get some good conversations going. So lots for Gemma and I to be doing. We'll be talking to lots of scientists and we'll tell you loads more about it next time. So Gemma, what have you been thinking about?
So as we have Aaron coming up to give us an update about Herbie's Law, I thought it might be useful for anyone who's not aware to give a little bit of background about what the current laws around animal research are in the UK at the moment. So As our listeners may already know, over 2.6 million animals were used in procedures or experiments in the UK in 2023. So of that number, almost 1.4 million of those animals were used for the first time in experiments. So that means that they could have been used again or several times, but we don't actually have those numbers. They're not reported. So they were used at least once in experiments.
Oh, such a big number, isn't it?
It is. It's unimaginable.
Yeah.
And then the remaining just over 1.2 million animals were just used in the creation and breeding of genetically altered or genetically modified animals, but were not actually used in procedures or experiments.
And just to say, I mean, that's pretty ghastly in itself.
It is. Yeah, because, these animals wouldn't have had, a natural life in nice conditions. They would have been in a lab environment, even though they weren't used in experiments.
Yeah. And it can cause a lot of pain, the genetic modification, can't it?
Yeah.
One for another episode.
It is, yeah. We'll talk about that another time. So for a researcher to be able to use any animals in experiments and for those numbers to be counted in these statistics that we have, researchers have to get 3 different types of licenses from the Home Office. So they have to have a personal license for each person that's carrying out the experiments on the animals, a project license, which covers the overall programme of work, and then an establishment license for the place where the work is going to be carried out. So each of these licenses has specific conditions, including what type of experiments can be done, what type of animals can be used, and what location the experiments will be done in. And that could be, a specific room to be used for surgery and things like that. And you might remember a few episodes ago, we were talking about the Animals in Science Regulation Unit report, which gives details on where these licenses have been breached and any adverse welfare conditions that the animals experience because of those breaches. But it's not only the licenses that researchers have to be aware of, there's also laws that are specifically designed to protect the animals that are being used in experiments, and of course the researchers have to abide by those as well. So the UK has a long history of implementing laws to protect animals, but also using animals in experiments. An important milestone was back in 1876 when the Cruelty to Animals Act was first introduced, and that set out some limits and a licensing system for animal experiments to make sure that experiments were only carried out when absolutely necessary to save or prolong human life.
So we've been using animals in the UK in experiments since at least Victorian times. That's why this kind of license or these regulations go back to 1876. Yeah, it's pretty shocking that it's still going on today.
Yeah. And that act was in place for 110 years until it was replaced in 1986 by what we now have in place, which is the Animals Scientific Procedures Act, otherwise known as ASPR, which introduced stricter and more specific regulations about what animals can be used in research and why. But the problem is that not all animals are actually protected by ASPR, and it only covers animals that are specifically what they call protected animals. And the definition
is, I've always found that a bit strange that the animals are protected. They're still being used in experiments. Anyway.
Exactly. They're not protected from being used in research.
No.
They're just protected by, we know what they're being used for, I suppose. But the definition of a protected animal, and I quote, is any living vertebrate other than man and any cephalopod, which are octopus, squid, cuttlefish, and nautilus. And the cephalopods weren't actually protected under ASPR until 2012 when it was amended.
I remember that happening. Yeah, it was quite a big deal at the time to get that in.
It was at the time. Yeah. So this is where it starts to get a bit confusing and concerning, because there's lots of non-vertebrate animals that don't fall under this protected definition. And the next part of the ASPR sentence only covers embryos after the first 2/3 of gestation and fish and amphibian larvae after they become capable of free feeding as protected animals. So this means that animals in the very early stages, the first third of their gestation period, or larvae before they can free feed, are not protected by ASPR, and they can be used without a license and their numbers aren't recorded, so we have no way of knowing just how many animals this is likely to be. But for example, lots of genetic and developmental experiments are done on zebrafish embryos, so I would imagine that these numbers are really very high.
So that 2.6 million animals that the Home Office reports on, that's just the tip of the iceberg potentially then.
It is, yeah, and we have no way of knowing how many animals aren't recorded.
So Gemma, this is just so confusing, isn't it? Because these animals are called protected, and then there's specially protected, and then other animals aren't protected. But all of these animals are actually being used in experiments. They're not being protected from the experiments, right?
No, exactly. So the whole point of ASPR isn't actually to stop animals from being used in experiments. It's just to license their use for researchers to carry out experiments that, you and I wouldn't be able to do.
Because it would be outlawed under other kind of animal cruelty.
Exactly. So it gives them the legal protection to be able to do these experiments.
It's very weird wording, isn't it? It's more like it's protection for the researchers rather than for the animals.
It is. Yeah, because it's not stopping any of them being used. So
yeah, it's a bit 1984.
But there is also there's also a separate category of animals that come under ASPR known as specially protected species. And this covers dogs, cats, horses and monkeys. But again, these animals can be and are used in research.
So they're not specially protected in that researchers can't use them?
No, exactly. But they must only be used when other species are deemed unsuitable or unavailable.
Right.
So I don't really know why there is this separate specially protected category and why we've chosen these animals to be more important than others.
I imagine it's because humans care more about dogs, cats, horses and monkeys.
Yeah, it seems that way.
Yeah.
But either way, they are still used, and over 4,000 specially protected animals were used in 2023, most of which were dogs.
Dreadful.
So it is. So what our listeners might not be aware of is that in response to a question that was put out in 2023, the government confirmed that there is no legal requirement for any sort of animal testing in medical research. So as I said, in 2023, over 2.6 million animals were used for the first time in experiments for whatever purposes from the licenses, but none of these experiments were required by law.
I just want to underline that, Gemma, because that is shocking, isn't it?
It is.
And I remember when we found this out, we were shocked. So
yeah,
there is no legal
really
requirement for animal testing in medical research.
No. And I think there's a lot of confusion about that as well, because, there is some research that is required for regulatory purposes. So that can be things like the testing of new drugs on 2 species of animals, or the testing of, some household chemicals and industrial chemicals. But none of this is required by law. And even those regulatory experiments are only required by guidelines that the UK chooses to follow.
It's guidance rather than required. And people have mistaken that over the years and got confused.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's no legal requirement to use animals in any of these types of experiments, and non-animal data will also be accepted. But the problem is that it's not enforced to make sure that the alternatives are thoroughly investigated and see if they can be used. It almost becomes the researcher's choice to choose to use animals.
Well, and that's the thing, isn't it? Because if these regulations were being properly enforced, then we should see fewer animals being used in research by quite some order of magnitude. Because ASPR does say that if there is a scientifically satisfactory alternative method, then an animal should not be used. So as part of the licence approval, researchers are required to state that they've looked at what the different alternatives could be and that they feel like none exist. But what we're seeing actually in practice is that often they're treating that as just a tick box exercise, and then they're not properly considering the alternatives. And another thing is that the Home Office is kind of taking their word for it. They've only rejected 1 licence application in 7 years. That's quite staggering, isn't it?
It is.
There's lots of reasons for that, and so lots of stuff to get our teeth into here. So I think we're going to talk about that in another episode about just why it's going so badly wrong. But just to say, none of this needs to be happening.
No. Exactly. And it's almost like we've got ourselves in a rut. We need to think about how we can do things differently. We've consistently relied on animal research to understand diseases that are uniquely human for so many years. And that adds up to an unimaginable number of animals that are used in experiments or indirectly for the products used in experiments, like we talked about last week, around the world and not just in the UK. But there's still so many diseases that we don't have cures for, including some of the most common diseases like cancer, cancer or dementia that we're faced with every day. But the laws that are in place are pretty much just keeping us treading water. Researchers are given the choice to use animal experiments with very little justification, and there's no real push or need to try anything different. But if we want to move medical research forward, we have to break this cycle, and that's only going to come from changing the law and also supporting and encouraging researchers to change how they carry out their research, making animal-free technologies the default way that research is done. And that's going to advance the future of healthcare while also saving the lives of millions of people and animals every year.
It's so important, isn't it? And I think as well, one of the things that is difficult to relate to is, you know, we see these big numbers, these 2.6 million animals, and it's hard to kind of imagine them as being unique, separate individuals who are sentient and have their own wants and needs and desires and things they'd like to be doing, which I think is why Herbie's law is so important, because it's putting a face to this.
Yeah.
And as people know listening at home, like Herbie is my beagle, and he was born to be used in a laboratory. He's one of the very few lucky ones that didn't happen for him, but he has a big tattoo on the inside of his ear. And it's a constant reminder of what he was destined for, and that he's just like them. He's just like the animals that are being used. Yeah,
exactly. It's easy to dissociate, but these animals are just the same. You know, dogs and things, they're the same as we have at home and our pets. And it's just they find themselves in these unfortunate positions.
Well, let's talk to Aaron. Let's bring Aaron in now, because we are doing something positive about this. We've got Herbie's Law. We're making change. We've got loads of scientists who are doing the right thing, who are using alternatives, who are wanting to move away from using animals and make that transition. And we have a government commitment to work towards it. So lots going on, Aaron. Tell us all the latest.
Hi, Gemma and Carla. Delighted to be here on the podcast.
Welcome.
So it's really good to be here. What we're doing at the moment is we're working to raise awareness of Herbie's Law. So that's obviously to phase out animal testing and medical research over the next decade. We're working with our MPs, so that's the parliamentarians, so that's MPs and peers, to raise awareness and to push for change. So recently, at the end of last year, we set up our own all-parliamentary party group, which is an APPG, which is basically an informal group of like-minded MPs and peers from the House of Lords who come together and talk about a certain issue. So we've set up ours called the APPG on phasing out animal experiments in medical research. It's a bit of a mouthful, but open to suggestions on acronyms.
Well, it's aligning with the government's commitment, isn't it? So that's why we chose that name, because the government's committed to working towards phasing out animal experiments. So.
Exactly. So what we do is we act as the secretariat for the group. We help provide support and we help provide events and stuff like that, put on events and take these parliamentarians and these peers to our ARC, so in Whitechapel in London, Queen Mary University of London. So with this group, the purpose is to build cross-party support for replacing animal experiments and medical research with human-specific methods, working closely with the scientific community to identify opportunities, barriers, and put forward constructive recommendations to government. So this group it's got 32 members. So that's a big
32.
It's
incredible.
Especially the rules recently changed to make it more stringent to form these type of groups because of other issues. So to get to 32 members, and this is people from every political spectrum and none. So we have people with no political affiliation on there, which is really good to have this group of really well-informed parliamentarians who can come together and really help change. So the group is chaired by Irene Campbell, who is the chair of the group, and we have the Earl of Courtdown, Neil Duncan-Jordan, and Ben Opsujetse as the chairs and officers of the group. So yeah, it's really exciting. It's really good to have these parliamentarians from across the political spectrum. So we recently, just a couple of weeks ago, we held our first ever cross-party lab visit. So we invited members of the APPG to come to our ARC at Queen Mary University of London and to meet with our scientists directly and to have a tour and to be able to see their work firsthand.
Oh, fantastic.
So it was really good, and we did it during British Science Week, so we were aligning with the Change and Adapt theme.
I love it, Change and Adapt.
To show firsthand, and we're really grateful for our scientists, Dr. Rosalind Hannon, Dr. Adrian Biddle, and Professor John Connolly, who gave up part of their day to show our MPs and our staffers who work for these members of Parliament and these peers, to show them what they do and to take their questions firsthand. So we're really grateful on the day we were joined. It was a really busy day in Parliament. So it was really grateful that Irene Campbell and Seamus Logan, two of our members of the group, came along. And we also had representatives from other MPs of the group came along and saw firsthand. Now, it was a really good example of what we're trying to do with the group. And we're taking these people who are interested in this topic to our scientists to show them firsthand how these technologies are being used and how they can be used to replace animals in research. So it's really good. It's a really exciting time, and it's resulting in actual change. So you may have seen earlier this year, Irene Campbell, the chair of the All Parliamentary Party group, actually secured a question at Home Office Oral Questions, where Irene secured a commitment from the minister to meet with the group and to feed into discussions around the phasing out of animal testing, which is really positive and just shows how the group is actually already making change and unlocking these opportunities directly to feed into the government's plans in this space.
Yeah, we played that clip on the podcast a couple of episodes ago, didn't we? And where the minister promised Irene as many ministers as she wanted.
I love that. She can have all the ministers she needs.
Yeah.
So it's just a really great time. We also help MPs and peers in the House of Lords to submit written questions as well. And we've been able to provide briefings as well to help them and that allows us to get that information that you were talking about earlier about the information about only one licence been rejected in the past 7 years. That came out of a written question. So that's part of our workload there, is that we help MPs to ask those questions to get that further information that helps inform them. But no, it's just a really positive time, and we're having lots of engagement, lots of meetings with MPs and peers to raise awareness of animal testing and to push for Herbie's law. And we're building up this team, especially with the All Parliamentary Party group. We're building up and we're securing change, and we're unlocking those meetings which are crucial to inform the government's plans in this space.
I have been working in this space for 17 years. I am much older than both of you. You're too polite to say anything.
Don't look at it.
No, don't look at it, Carla. Anyway, I would say this is the most exciting opportunity we've had in those 17 years, aside from maybe when the Cosmetics Directive came into force. That was a long time ago now. Because we've got this government commitment in the manifesto to work towards phasing out animal testing. This is huge. This is the moment when all of the work that we've been doing behind the scenes is actually resulting in, potentially actual tangible change. So the work that you, Aaron, are doing with Isabel and the rest of the team is really crucial, because we've just got this window of opportunity. The government has told us that they're going to publish their strategy this year. So now is the absolute moment where we need everybody to be getting on board and making as much noise about this as possible, so that we can secure as much in this strategy as we can to work towards Herbie's law and to end animal testing, or set in place the transition. So what can supporters do? What's the thing that you need help with, Aaron?
We hear from all the time in public affairs, from when we speak to MPs and their staff, the number one thing that really helps in this area is when their constituents get in touch with their MPs or lobby peers as well. So if supporters if they can ask their MPs to sign our early day motion, which is calling for the phase out of animal testing, or to meet with us to hear more about it, or if they're able to, if they can ask their representatives to join the APPG to find out more, because that will then allow them to take part in these discussions that we're hoping to have with ministers in the coming weeks. So we'll hear all the time that when MPs and peers hear from their own representative, their own constituents, that really helps them.
Brilliant. So Gemma, tell people how they can do that, because you've made it very easy for them, haven't you?
Yeah, you can go onto our website and there's automated kind of email button. You just put in your details and it'll send your details off to the right person, your local MP. And the more people that do that, the more noise it's going to make in their inbox, and it's going to get their attention.
Fantastic. Such an exciting time, Aaron. Thank you so much for all the work that you are doing, you and Isabel and the team, making such inroads here. And please, everybody at home, do your bit as well, because it makes Aaron and Isabel's lives so much easier.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the podcast. It's a really exciting time. We're making lots of change. MPs and peers are very receptive. And thank you to all of our supporters. You contacting your MPs and getting in touch and sharing your ideas really makes all the difference. So please keep on doing so. And we will get there. I'm confident we will get there together.
All right, Gemma, I think that's coming to be the end of what we've got time for. So we will be back in a fortnight on the 11th of April. What have we got happening next time?
We'll be telling you all about everything that happens at our science conference.
Brilliant. All right, so let's leave everybody with the poll question for this week.
Yep, so off the back of what Aaron was just telling us about, do you agree with the APPG's purpose to build cross-party support for replacing animal experiments in medical research? Yes or no? And you can vote on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, X, and Carla's Substack, the Animal Free Labcast, and we'll discuss the results in the next episode. And if you'd like to tell us your thoughts about the poll or anything else from this episode, then please leave us a message on 0208 054 96 95. That's 0208 054 96 95.
Bro, thank you. And can you just repeat the poll question one more time, Gemma?
Yep, it's do you agree with the APPG's purpose to build cross-party support for replacing animal experiments in medical research? Yes or no?
Be interested to see what people say this time.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us. Please stay part of the conversation by reading my brand new companion blog on Substack. You can just search for Animal Free Labcast to read and subscribe. You can comment there. And we look forward to hearing what you think about this week's poll. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening this time. And Gemma, great to have you with us again.
Thank you, Carla. See you soon.
See you soon. You've been listening to the Animal Free Labcast, the podcast that puts humans, not animals, at the heart of medical research. If you want to find out about more ways to move to a world of animal-free research, then head to our website, animalfreeresearchuk.org. And if you'd like to send us an audio message about the poll or anything else you've heard in the podcast, then leave us a voicemail on 0208 054 9695. That's 0208 054 9695. Thank you for listening.